Spark supports those who take matters into their own hands. Those who seek the tools to rebuild their futures. Creating better jobs in societies recovering from conflict. Spark works with young entrepreneurs, companies eager to grow, refugees determined to reshape their lives, and ambitious women keen on escaping unemployment. We provide scholarships and leadership training. We boost business ideas and practical skills. Open pathways to markets and finance. So these young people can grow solid businesses in fragile places and employ people in their communities. For more than 25 years, Spark has been sharpening the tools for these young, ambitious men and women. For they bring peace and stability where it's needed most.
So today we're going to discuss the issue of the so-called skill gap, which is something that until a few weeks ago I had never heard of, but it's the gap between the skills that employers and companies are looking for when they're looking to hire new personnel and the skills that people that are looking for a job generally have to offer. And in the Middle East, 60% of employers have indicated they have a hard time finding the right people for the right job. Now with COVID-19, there have been massive shifts in the economies around the world, for instance, towards e-commerce and the health sector, making this issue only more challenging. So how can we make sure that young people learn the right skills for the right jobs? And what is the role of the education system in this? Luckily, these are questions I don't have to answer just by myself today. I'm here with a great panel of people, which I will shortly introduce to you. First of all is Professor Nur Incetahtaci. She's a doctor in social work and heads the International Relations Office at Gaziantep University in Turkey, where she's also a lecturer. Next is Mohammed. She's an Iraqi entrepreneur and founder of software company Poltan, which she started a year ago, just before COVID-19. And since 2017, she has been at the forefront of promoting a career in tech and in creating a network of young software developers in Iraq. Also here is Lavin Salah. She's a third-year student of computer sciences at Charmel University in Iraq. And in the past 7 months, she's been a web developer intern at Poltan. So it's really nice here to have employer and employee put together in one talk. We'll see how that goes. And last but not least is my colleague Haneen Khatib. She's a country manager in Jordan for Spark and has over 14 years of experience working on higher education, youth employment, and entrepreneurship programs for the most vulnerable people in the Middle East. She has extensive experience with improving and developing curricula that particularly focus on increasing the chances of employment after graduation. So a great welcome to all of you, and thank you for participating in this talk today. And to kick things off a little bit, I want to start with a statement, and I would like to ask you just to answer with a yes or no for now, and then there will be more time and space to elaborate on that. But let's start with the statement, which is the skill gap is overrated. Graduates are actually well prepared for the labor market. Let me start with Haneen. What would you say? Are graduates well prepared for the labor market? Yes or no?
No.
Right. Lavin, what would you say?
That's a no.
Also a no. Hero?
A big no.
And then Professor Nur?
In Turkey, no.
Yes. Right. Okay. So that's a no actually from everyone, whether it comes to students being prepared for the labor market. Haneen, would you elaborate a little bit on that? What are the main issues? Why are students in general not ready for the labor market?
There are multiple issues. It's not one issue. Some of the issues are related to a certain country's context and the education system and how relevant it is to the actual market. We have other issues that are related to not only higher education, but also education in general. Even school education is not as relevant as it should be. But I can quickly mention that we just wrapped up a couple of workshops in collaboration with 2 higher education institutions, where we brought in some HR executives from the private sector to discuss integrating some of those missing skills within the existing curriculum. And I can tell you that most of the companies highlighted the issue of communication skills, teamwork, business writing, digital skills, and definitely the language gap of English. Being English now is very important for any employer in hiring someone.
Yeah, is that something you recognize as well, Nur, in what you see working together closely with the students of Gaziantep University?
Actually, yes, I should thank to Haneen because she has underlined very important issues. I think we have some common problems, but these are not new, I think. Even before pandemic, we started to face this issue, maybe starting a decade ago. So therefore, we are structuring the curriculum according to the needs of the labor markets, which is very difficult because it's a dynamic process and there are always new changes and new updates. And sometimes I think universities are not very dynamic to catch these improvements in the labor market, especially if it's an industrial zone like Gaziantep, city of Gaziantep. And in the developing countries, majority of us, like us, it is very difficult to combine education and the needs of labor markets, not only in higher education, like Haneen has already stressed.
Yeah, and then down the line, like how big of a problem are we talking of here? So I mentioned in my introduction already, it's 60% of employers in the Middle East have difficulty finding the right people. But how's that, for instance, at your university? How many students have a job after graduation?
Actually, in my opinion, we are a little bit luckier than the other universities in Turkey. In Turkey, maybe I should introduce a little bit. We have more than 200 universities. And in Gaziantep University, which is almost 48 years old now, this year, we have designed some programs, as I said before, like internship program. And in this program, last semesters, each and every student is taking this semester in the industrial zone or in any kind of company related to their proficiency, their job, or their area of their study. So this is really helping us to find employment opportunity for our students. According to our research, it is like 67% from our graduates, they are employed in the market in 1 year after they graduate. So this is highest 7th in Turkey. It's really good, I think, because as I said, there are more than 200 universities in Turkey. But it is not only about this internship program. Additional to these kind of programs, we are trying to improve, soft skills and hard skills of the students with additional courses to academic curriculum. So for now, according to my data, yes, as I said, it's between 67 and 70 employment rate of the graduates of Gaziantep University in Turkey, and this is 7th in all Turkey, and in the league, let's say in the region, the eastern part of Turkey, it's the first. I'm happy to see that. Actually, I was informed last week about this. Basically, the big problem was the mismatch of the academic curriculum and the needs of the labor market. But we are now, it is our 10th year, we have designed this internship program and other supporting programs. So we have just started, I think, to see the impact of these programs on the employment rate of the students.
Yeah, I would really be interested also to hear your view on this, Hero, as a relatively recent graduate and now as an employer. What was your experience? Did you feel ready for the labor market? And now as an employer, is it easy for you to find the right people?
As everyone else said, like the gap is really big, and we have a huge mismatch between, the labor demand and also what universities provide for students. So I guess when I graduated from university, I was kind of lost. I didn't know actually, like I studied something in university, and then I came into the market, and the whole industry was like requiring different kind of skill sets. I was kind of lucky because during school I took like some internships. I was always keeping on self-learning, taking online courses. But I could also see that my friends all had a really hard time finding jobs and matching their skills with what these kind of jobs were requiring in the market. And yeah, and also when I started my own company, especially in my field, which is tech skills in general, we have a huge shortage of tech skills, not only in Iraq or Middle East, but also globally. So yeah, when I started my own company as a software company, I had to hire, software developers, designers, and then I could only find a few people, but then it was really hard to find more people, especially to find like a more diverse groups of people. Like when I started, at some point, all of my company was like males, and I had no female employees. I was like, wait a minute, what I'm doing here? Like, is it my fault or is it just the market? So I think that was the turning point for me, where I started to, hiring interns actually, that I could help to them to develop their, tech skills, and in the long term I could hire as well.
And actually, one of the people that you hired is Lavin. Lavin, when you were walking into Hero's company, did you feel ready?
Yeah, you can say I was ready.
Okay, so there's no gap then. You were well prepared.
Not there. So I studied a bit on my own, and during the quarantine I tried to learn on my own. So I knew I wasn't at zero level, So when I got here, I knew that I already started, and I needed help. I needed someone to guide me and, hold my hands and help me go through that. And Hero was there, and my supervisor.
Yeah, so what you're saying is that it was also through your own initiative and your own work that you felt confident enough to start this internship. But if you look at the program itself that you have been following at your university, what is it you experienced there?
In uni?
Yes.
I haven't experienced much, to be honest. I'm in my 4th semester so far. And we have basic information about computers. This is a hardware, this is a keyboard, this is a mouse. We have only the basic knowledge so far. So it wasn't much, and I really felt like I'm falling behind. I was really behind, and I really actually needed help. I needed to go through there and find my own way. So when I saw Hira's post on LinkedIn, I saw that she was looking for interns. I immediately applied. I sent her actually a very long text. I don't know how she read all that. And then a few months later, she called me back and asked for an interview.
How do those things go with your fellow students? So how do they? So you started computer sciences. You start a program. How are your classmates ending up there? Like starting to do this major of computer science. Do they have any background or experience with computers when they get started, or?
No, not even a bit. Me myself, I had no background, so it was a complete surprise for me to go to a computer department. So for everyone else, it was the same, and so far they're still surprised. Some of them, they're still not okay with the department, you can say.
Yeah, which is a little bit surprising to me to hear that, because you sort of expect people that when they choose a university program that they go for something that they're passionate about, something they maybe have been doing since they are very young already. But so actually, these are people that maybe never touched a computer before, and still they end up studying computer sciences.
Yes, so here in 12th grade, you take a ministry exam. And based on your marks, the government, they choose you where to go. When they choose the major for you, basically they say, hey, this is your option. This is the college for you. This is what we chose for you. If you're okay with it, go there, study. If not, then do whatever you want. So some of them can't really afford the private universities. So if you don't like the major that they chose for you, go to a private university. And most of the students, they can't really afford it. So that was the problem for them. They had to accept what the government chose for them.
Right. Dr. Nur, is this something you in some ways recognize, like students coming into your university and you have to start from the ground up, basically, which I would say is in itself already a little bit of a challenge.
Yes, actually, before that, I want to add something to Lavin's experiences and combine both of the issues together, because Lavin has awareness. So her background is has impact on her career, let's say. So this is very important, because in the universities, like majority of the universities in Turkey, for instance, they are comprehensive. And in this kind of university, you have students from different backgrounds, and not only economic, social, cultural. So it means the capacity is different, the potential is totally different. So you have to design the services according to these realities. Like in Gaziantep University, for instance, we have a lot of refugee students from Syria, because Gaziantep is a neighboring city to Syria. So we received a lot of thousands of immigrants during the years of conflicts. Therefore, majority of the international students are from Syria, and we are designing the curriculums including these facts. So it really matters to raise awareness, like Lavin, to see what she wants, what do they want, what is the potential with them, and what is the reality of the labor market, and social and political issues as well, because it's not only an academic problem, it's also a political problem. If you talk about employment and if you talk about integration and everything, has a political perspective as well, in my opinion. So the background really makes it really matters while preparing these programs for me.
Yeah, so what we're also touching upon here a little bit is that in general there's this skills gap, but there's particular groups, I would say, that are in a more difficult situation, or for which the problem is a little bit bigger, actually, and one of these groups are probably the Syrian refugees. And maybe also women and girls in general. Is that something you also see, Haneen, in Jordan? You have a lot of Syrian refugees there as well, of course.
Yes, definitely. The situation for Syrian refugees is a little bit different, because higher education is not always an option, especially bachelor's degree. So due to the fact that some people have lost or had a gap in their education in Syria, or left Syria without the proper paperwork, unfortunately, they're not allowed to study normal bachelor's degree, but those have the option, the alternative of TBAT education and diplomas. So that's one issue. The other issue is for women in general, I would say for Jordanian women and for refugee women. There's the issue of, first of all, women in STEM. Like Hero already said, you find a few women in tech, in science, in medicine, in different things that are mostly dominated by men. And there are different factors for that, and there are different opportunities that we can present. For example, if we're talking about the issue of education, it's not just the issue that we're not matching the labor market. We need to change the way we teach. Teaching in theory, the traditional ways we teach are no longer applicable. We need to add practical knowledge, on-job training, and we need to co-teach in collaboration with the private sector. That's where the private sector can play a role. I'm bringing more examples of women and refugees in business, or successful women or refugees in certain positions or companies. And that's the way we need to shift higher education as well. It's about entrepreneurial teaching, not entrepreneurship necessarily, but entrepreneurial ways of teaching.
That's a good point, well, we're actually shifting already a little bit from going to defining the problem to defining some solutions to this problem, which is actually great. And of course, that's the main point of this panel talk. So maybe it's good if we dive a little deeper into that. But I would like to make sort of like a distinction between things that we might be able to change today or tomorrow already, some small changes that could make a big difference, and things that simply will take more time or are structural changes that we cannot do overnight. Like let's start with those quick solutions. What Hero, from your perspective, what do you think? What could be changed right away that could improve the situation?
I always say internships. Like internships are the key for quick changes and quick shifts toward filling up a little bit of the gap. That's why I actually started in my own company, also through organizations. I have managed to actually help people, get trainings, find internships, and this could be done like in collaboration between, the educational centers, like, the universities, the schools, and also the private sector as well. I have seen some efforts, for example, in Iraq, where some universities have collaborated with private sector to adjust their curriculum based on the market demand. But as I see, it's not enough, and it's not taken very seriously. So I guess if we put more effort into these collaborations from both sides, for example, in the private sector, usually people see interns as a burden on themselves. They would be like, why would I spend my time and energy of my employees on someone who's going to be here for a short period of time? And then later on, when they are looking for some people to hire, they complain they don't find enough skills. So I guess if we just look at this issue in a long term way, like for example, I say what I was thinking, I would say I'm gonna hire these interns, but these interns are gonna help me in the future when I actually need these skills. I wouldn't have to go find a search for like an employee for months and get disappointed. I'll have my interns who I have trained myself, and they have the enough skills to work at my company. So yeah, I guess that's one of the quickest solutions. And also universities can, like, instead of changing the whole curriculum like all over, which might take some time, they could just start by offering like elective and optional courses like that could be very effective in short term. For example, just a workshop about soft skills, about communication, about how to make your CV, how to conduct, like how to talk in an interview, or how to go research online. So I guess these easy and short-term goals can be achieved very quickly and can make like huge changes in terms of the market gap.
That's really great. You mentioned actually quite a lot of solutions, which is really, really good. But I just want to zoom in a little bit on some of them, because one of the things that you mentioned is the changing of curricula within universities. Dr. Nur, I guess this is also something that within your university probably is something that you're focusing on to make the curricula as useful and most practical as is possible to connect people to the labor market. But I assume it's also difficult because, well, if you start training students today and they will graduate in 3 or 4 years, that means that you have to train them for a job that is somewhere in the future. So you don't know that job exactly at this moment. You don't know what will be required so much for that job. So how are you dealing with that?
Actually, being in touch with the Chamber of Commerce, for instance, Chamber of Industry, or some other organizations like NGOs is very vital in my perspective, because this is the only way to see new improvements in the labor market. As I said before, especially in the city of Gaziantep, which is an industrial city, we are trying to encourage our students to go to companies, to introduce themselves, and to get involved, to have more networks with these companies in order to stop their career plans. So this is not something we can do alone, because universities basically, unfortunately, the majority of the curriculum is based on theory. But it is theory is not very skilled in order to take a place in labor markets. We need practical issues, as here already mentioned, soft skills, and also self-confidence, and some other skills. But the most important thing is job shadowing. The student must go to a company, to a factory, just to see the atmosphere, just to see this working place, and to have some idea in order to decide, and then to determine their own career and plans for future. But maybe one more thing I can add is startups. In my side, I can say startup is something. Startup projects is helping students to come together and to create their own job idea, and they are working for that. And to do this, they have to go to industrial zone or meet these companies and to have general idea, and then based on this idea, they are creating their startups. So we are now encouraging students with Spark, actually, we are doing this to raise some ideas, and we are funding the best three, for instance. So this has a lot of impacts. For instance, they are creating their own groups, and therefore it's one of integration activities as well. You can see Syrian students with Turkish students and from other countries. They are coming together for one target, and they are visiting companies, they are visiting factories, for instance, to see what are the needs, and in their perspective, how they can contribute to this. And we are awarding the best ideas, and we are networking, we are keeping them in touch with the companies. So therefore, it is not alone universities can do this. From my perspective, it's a cooperative thing with NGOs, like chambers, and maybe other institutions depending on the structure of the country and region and city.
Haneen, of course, you've been working on these topics that Dr. Nur just mentioned, improving curricula, and also providing the traineeship programs and entrepreneurship training. It sounds like, well, there's an interest for the companies, there's an interest from the universities, so it should be easy enough, right, to make some improvements.
It should be, in theory, yes. In reality, it's not that easy. One, you have the enabling environment in each country, what it takes to get a course accredited. And in developing countries, this is usually bureaucratic. So you need to have advocacy and influence, and that's not easy. You need to go with something that is proven. And that's why we pilot those projects and we work directly with universities. And we do have those small pilots, and some of them prove success in order for us to go and advocate for a policy change. And that's not easy. That's a long-term goal. But what I found interesting is that now across the board, all of us are agreeing on the same missing skills, the same missing gaps, and the same solutions almost. I would say it's very important to influence curriculum design and development and provide people with on-job training and entrepreneurship skills for people to either start their business or have an opportunity as a freelance worker or have an opportunity as a full-time worker somewhere. But you also have to affect school education as well. You cannot come and say you've studied for 12 years without being introduced to innovation and what it means to be a problem solver or a good speaker or how to pitch and to understand what market needs mean, and then suddenly give a crash course of 6 months and expect this person to become innovative. It's a journey and it's a full cycle, and we do attempt to have those quick wins and to solve some of the problems, but it's a long-term goal and impact doesn't happen quickly. I would say quick wins, yes, but impact will take time.
Yeah, like when we talk about, so we're talking a little bit about the context, the environment that of course also plays a role in all of these issues. And I think Hero, despite the fact that you were really motivated to get things going, to start your own company, it was still pretty difficult, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Especially I started during, the Corona crisis. I started in February last year, and then in March we went into lockdowns, and it was really hard for me to communicate remotely, and also you had to pay for rent and other expenses that we were not using at all. So I guess it was quite a difficult year for us, and also in terms of doing business and getting clients. We were lucky at first that we had some clients, but also since it's uncertain times, people want to keep their cash on, and they don't really easily spend their money and work on new projects, and they want to just come to us and for us to develop their projects. They want to just see what's going to happen next. Is the situation going to get better or not? So I guess it was a pretty confusing year. First, and at one side we had people realizing how important the internet, the online world, tech is, and then the other hand we had so much instability that people were confused which side to take. But fortunately, I think we've made it into 2021 and looking forward to see what's gonna happen in this year.
Yeah, of course, the impact of COVID has been huge, and just to elaborate a little bit on my question that I just asked, I think it took you around 6 months to formally register your company eventually, right?
Yeah, well, the registration process and every process here, I think it's a problem in the whole Middle East, but especially in Iraq, it's so messy that you have to go just for registering a startup. You have to go through so many processes, and then it took me 8 months actually to register my business. It took me it took me around 2 months only to just register the name. So yeah, it was pretty hectic, and I'm very sorry for everyone else who's gonna go through this in this country. It really demotivates you from the beginning to start your own company, and also it's very costly as well. In for example, European countries, I don't know, in other countries it takes less than 500. Can you guys hear my voice?
Yes. I think we've lost connection for now. Let's for now switch the conversation a little bit to the impact also on COVID, on the possibility of students to still follow the programs, and I guess the problem, this skill gap in a certain way has become more difficult to solve also because a lot of course of the work and also the courses in the university switched to online. How was that for you, Lavin? Like you're doing an internship, but at the same time you're still part of university as well, and then like everything switches online. Were you prepared for that?
The online option was better for me personally because I was an intern here. I still am. So I was really going well with the online teaching, the online learning, but like the majority of the students didn't agree to that, so we had to skip the online.
Yeah, so I guess for some of your fellow students it was pretty difficult as well, right?
Yes, some of them couldn't, understand the lesson online. They had problems with understanding because it was just the beginning of learning how to code and all that. And for some students, they didn't have stable connections, internet connections, for those who lives in the villages.
Yeah, is that something you recognize, Haneen?
Definitely, yes. Even though a lot of the higher education institutions, even schools, have adapted very quickly by introducing certain platforms, and some were existing platform solutions, it was not all the best at all times. You can also need to expect that people do not always have access to laptops, mobile phones, or smart mobile phones. The coverage of internet is not the same throughout at least the country of Jordan. Not everybody is able to afford fiber optics or Wi-Fi. Some people still have ADSL, and that's not optimal for education. The types of testings they're doing now for students are not at the same quality. I believe we're going to have a deficit, but I believe that COVID-19 taught us two different things. One, it presented us with a challenge that had showed high resilience and the importance of digital skills that are no longer complementary and now are essential. You should expect a new graduate to have basic digital skills, use of online platforms, use of basic internet and computer skills. This is very essential now. But at the same time, we need to recognize that in developing countries and all over the world, what has hit is not something that everybody's going to absorb the same way, and not everybody's going to have access to the same quality of education.
Yeah, and in that way, COVID-19 is, I guess, quite a challenge, and maybe even making this skills gap, bigger, because for some people it has become so difficult to continue their education programs, and especially the most vulnerable groups in society have been impacted by that. Dr. Nur, how was that within Gaziantep University, making this shift to online education? And you have a lot of Syrian refugees, as you mentioned, and not all of them are living in the most ideal circumstances.
Yes, unfortunately, it is very challenging, not only for the refugee students, but I think for generally in Turkey, we face a lot of problems, not only because of the infrastructure, maybe, but maybe the teaching skills was not very compatible with this digital transformation, because we have suddenly in 1 week, we have transformed and changed the teaching system. And we were not ready for that. The curriculum, the methodology system was not ready for that. So I think it took several months until we started to use different instruments while we are using this digital systems. And of course, we needed a lot of support to do that. And when it comes to other side, yes, even if government tries to provide internet, if you don't have devices, if we don't have enough devices for every family, because according to our research, in each family there are 5 or 6 people living. And as I think in Jordan, their statistics are similar, and half of the refugee population is young generation and students. So it means in every family there are a lot of students, children and youngsters. It's not the needs are the same. We need devices and we need internet connection. So it was not it was not enough and not provided, unfortunately. And in addition to this, skills were not very compatible with the situation. But now, as far as I can see, personally, according to my experiences, we are a little bit better. But if you look at the majority of the stuff in all schools, it's very difficult to use new digital world. To be part of this digital world is very difficult, and to pass your ideas to students is very difficult in this platform. And there are some barriers, like cultural barriers, because sometimes when you turn on the camera, it means you're at the house of somebody and you are being part of that house, and it is not very easy every time, and not everybody has their own privacy to turn on the camera. So majority of the students, they prefer to turn off the camera, and then it's something like you are in a radio program and you're just speaking to somebody that you cannot see. And it makes it really difficult, especially in theoretical courses, which is 90% of the structure of the universities. And it really makes it difficult, but I hope next semester it will be much better, but we have to do our best and using each and every tool in order to make it up, because we have lost a lot of time, and some of the students are graduated. But I don't think that we did our best. Unfortunately, we couldn't. We have to learn to use, we have to be the part of this digital world.
Yeah, it's always typical that when we talk about the importance of internet, especially nowadays, that we are experiencing also in this talk, that sometimes the internet can work against us. But I want to go in a little bit deeper about this point about curricula and what changes can be made. But before that, I think it would be good to elaborate a little bit on this point you highlight, Dr. Nur, about also this context. So, for instance, some families in which there's one laptop and 6 people that have to share that one laptop, and that makes it, of course, very difficult to follow an education program. So even if you have a good program, if you're not in a position to follow it, it's difficult. And also the issue of sometimes feeling uncomfortable turning your camera on. But maybe another part of the context, I would like to ask that to Lavin. So from what I understand is that for professors in Iraq, for instance, at your university, it has become pretty difficult since COVID also for them to continue their lessons and to provide the programs to you.
Yeah, it's actually really, really difficult for the teachers as well. My own father is a teacher, is a university teacher. You know, with the salary problems and the online teaching, it's just a mess.
Yeah. So what I understood from you is that even though that you're supposed to have a lesson, there's a lot of lessons eventually not happening because the teachers, they don't feel validated enough to be teaching every day, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I talked to one of my few teachers. They were like, since I'm not getting paid, since I'm not making any money out of it, I work hard every day, and I'm still not getting paid. So why would I even put in the effort for something that has no result?
Yeah, and that is a really tough issue to find a solution for. Haneen, is this also something you've seen before in Jordan, or is this something you're familiar with in any way?
Yes, definitely. When we go into a university to implement a program, our main issue usually is how do we get those teachers motivated, because we're asking them to take on above and beyond what they already have as a load. And those are demotivated teachers in the public sector. Those are teachers who have been working for years, sometimes on curricula that has not been updated in a very long time. They have not been introduced to new teaching methodologies. And sometimes there's also a big gap between the development private sector and academia. Academia people are driven and motivated from a different perspective, and they come from a different background. They work on a syllabus, they have milestones that they need to hit, they have exams that they rate, and so on and so forth. So we're two different worlds. Nonetheless, there are areas where you can meet. Our way as Spark to convince universities to jump on board with our program, to be quite honest, was a very tough road. It took us 2 years to convince the first university to start our program, where you go into a university, you do a technical needs assessment, you work with the university to check in where the areas they need to work on, where there are opportunities and challenges, and then beyond that, you can determine the areas of improvement, whether that being teaching of teachers, co-teaching, entrepreneurship boot camps, or curriculum development and design. That was not easy. If you want to come as an external source saying to a university, I want to change the way you teach, who are you to tell me to change the way I teach? I've been doing that for years. So it's more of a collaborative way. If you approach a university from a perspective that you want to partner together and you want to work towards their own needs and adapt to their own ways of teaching as well, that's the way to do it, to be quite honest. Trying to motivate teachers by bringing them as the partners, as the people who co-design, as the people who come up with their own ideas is also great. I think it's also great to recognize something, at least I can speak for Jordan. A lot of academic people have never worked a day in their life beyond academia, and they're teaching entrepreneurship and business. And that's a huge question and exclamation mark. I think there need to be programs of exchange of teachers and private sector representatives where they exchange their roles, or they have a day at a company to understand certain things, because you can teach the theory, but it can be all the way away from reality or unrealistic.
Yeah, I can imagine if you're teaching entrepreneurship, it could be useful to have some experience as an entrepreneur yourself. Dr. Nur, I saw you were a little bit triggered by what Haneen also said. Do you recognize what she said also, and like the motivation
yes, definitely.
towards professors?
Yes, when Haneen was talking, I was the faces of the lecturers when we were telling them how to formulate the curriculum, how to redesign it. They were totally unhappy with that, because they think that this is the best way. What they are doing is the best way to teach, and there aren't any other options. But the reality is not like that, especially in these conditions. So but collaborative intervention is very important, as Spark is one of our best partners at Gaziantep University, and with Spark we have designed modules, and we have chosen some courses in every faculty, and we designed these courses under this with distance learning methodology. And after this we saw that yes, it's very difficult, but if you can start somehow, yes, you can do that step by step. After this pilot courses, we saw the impact, and we learned how to use this system and putting the student in the center, doing your best to teach the student and using new instruments. It takes time, but once if you somehow find a way to use the same language with the lecturer, it happens. But with old schools lecture, let's say, it's very difficult. And when you try to say something, they think that you are teaching them, but they are professors. They are teaching since 40 years maybe, and they don't feel very comfortable with using new methodologies. But at the end, this is the reality. And if you want to succeed in this world, you have to adapt it yourself. And we are encouraging not only our students, but also our professors with the help of NGOs and some other bodies in order to adaptate our curriculum with this new system.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. Is that also something, by the way, Hero, that you recognized looking back on your professors in university? Maybe not always too open to changes and
I guess, yeah,
new ways of teaching.
One of the biggest problems when it comes to technical, fields is that our teachers in university, they don't really have practical experience in the field, in the industry. They keep teaching you like theoretical stuff, and then they actually forget about what is happening actually out there in the market. So yeah, we've had so many bad experiences with that, where our teachers would insist on teaching us some sort of skills, and then we would always argue that please let's change this to another subject so we can actually make use of it. And then it was always very difficult to convince them. But actually, we also had teachers who were very welcoming, and they would ask us like what kind of skills we would want to learn, and they would talk to the head of the department, and they would offer elective courses so we could take as part of the curriculum as well. So I guess we have like both kind of teachers. Some of them can it's really hard for them to adapt to change, and then there are also teachers who are very passionate about teaching the right skills to their students. What we had in university, our university was a liberal arts university, so we were actually exposed to different majors and different kind of skills before we could choose our major. I think in developing countries this could be a key for making the whole process better. If you have the opportunity to explore different fields and different majors, at the end you would choose something that you're passionate about. Unfortunately, this is not the case in public schools, but some of the private schools offer liberal arts education.
Yeah, and to come back a little bit to the issue of skills, Haneen, so when changing the curricula, what should we focus on, do you think, when it comes to what skills are the most necessary? Should we, for instance, when it comes to computer sciences, which is a really specific kind of program, do you want to focus more on keeping that updated with the last kinds of developments in computer sciences, or is it maybe better to not so much even focus on that, but to teach students more soft skills like how to solve problems and how to keep adjusting themselves to new situations? What is more important?
Not to be very specific, because I think every higher education institution and each curriculum has its own issues. So for example, what Lavin explained about her experience is something unimaginable, that they don't even have basic computer skills or access to computer labs, perhaps, or actually adapting to some of the newest technologies or platforms that they need to work on in order to advance, which should be something that is a given. So my first advice would be, in specific topics, especially computer, digital skills, technology, certain curriculums need to be adapted at least every year. There are new platforms, new technology, new methodologies, new coding languages that need to be learned, and those need to be adapted quickly. Otherwise, they're not relevant anymore. The more general things that I see across the board in the region, and specifically in Jordan, are the soft skills, definitely. The soft skills, the characteristics of your future employee. I would hear it time and time, and me even as an employer or a people's manager, this is what I want to see in a prospective employee. Their attitude, their characteristics, their personality actually than their knowledge. Everything can be learned. You can open on YouTube and learn how to code. It's now that easy. It's their willingness to learn. adaptability, ability to resolve conflict, their attitude, dedication, positivity. These are the main things that I think most employers look in overall as they hire.
Yes, and that's a great piece of advice, I would say, to all young people that are studying right now. And Lavin, based also on your own experience, because like to a great extent, it was through your own initiative and hard work that you ended up where you are. What would your advice be to your fellow students? What would you give them?
I would first of all advise them to actually learn English, because all the tutorials, YouTube videos are in English language, and it's one of the necessities. And the second advice would be still not too late. You can start again. You can start all over again, and do what actually you like, what you actually are passionate about, what you actually enjoy, what you think is good for you. At least experience it, and then later you can decide. For me, it was like this. At first, I experienced the coding. I Googled it. I watched tutorials. I experienced it and I liked it. So that's why I stayed.
And we mentioned a range of solutions to this problem. If it was all up to you and things like money would not be an issue, what would you suggest? What would we change about our way of teaching and education system to improve the situation?
I would actually change the whole education system. I mean, from elementary schools, because since childhood they should learn the languages and the sciences, and they shouldn't force the students to do something they don't like. Change the whole system, make them enjoy the lessons, and then provide a lot of programs, internships, even for when they grow up, and give them actually the chance to choose the major themselves, not based on a grade you got in the ministry exam, sorry.
That's a great way forward, I would say, and from the way it sounds, it also seems like a whole lot of work cut out for Dr. Nur, I would say. But in general, I guess this of course remains to be an issue that involves a broad range of actors, from the private sector to young people themselves, the universities, and also NGOs like Spark to find a solution. I think we've touched upon some really great points today, and I would like to thank all of you for your participation. I think it was really great to have all these different perspectives, from the private sector to NGOs to the university, to have everyone put together. And I think that based on this, we have given some ways for moving forward. And at least from my side, I would say that I feel mildly optimistic about the future, and I think that we can definitely make some positive changes. And I hope you share my optimism a little bit too. But for now, I would like to thank you so much for your participation.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.